The last customer. Rain hammered the windows of Ruby's diner, thick sheets of it running sideways in the wind, and outside, a neon sign flickered against the dark, Ruby S, open 24 HRS, though the 24 stuttered on and off like it couldn't quite commit to the promise. Inside, the booth sat empty, the red vinyl cracked with age. A jukebox in the corner hummed low, playing nothing anyone had chosen, no song anyone could quite name. Behind the counter, Mara wiped the same spot again and again. She was somewhere in her 50s, or looked it, with tired eyes and an apron stained by what seemed like decades of coffee. She didn't look up when the bell over the door jingled. "We're closing soon," she said, before she even knew who'd walked in. The man who entered was soaked through, 30-something, a duffel bag slung over one shoulder, his shoes leaving dark prints on the checkered floor. He hesitated at the threshold, as though the doorway cost him something to cross, as though some part of him already knew this was not a threshold like other thresholds. "Just coffee," he said, "and maybe 5 minutes out of the rain." Mara looked up at last. Her eyes moved over him the way a nurse's might, quick, assessing, already knowing more than she let on. "Coffee I can do," she said. "The rain's not mine to give." His name was Daniel, though no one in the diner would say it aloud for a while yet. He crossed the room and sat at the counter, 3 stools down from the only other customer, an old woman, 70 or more, knitting needles clicking steadily in a slow, unhurried rhythm, who never once looked up from her work. She had, it seemed, been there a very long time, longer than the coffee had been hot, longer than the neon sign had known how to hold steady. Mara poured the coffee and set it down without spilling a drop, without even looking at the cup as she did it, the way a person does a thing they've done 10,000 times before. "Rough night," Daniel said, mostly to have something to say. "Every night's a rough night for somebody," Mara said. "What's yours?" Daniel wrapped both hands around the mug like it was the only warm thing left in the world. Steam rose between his fingers. "Had a fight with my brother," he said. 20 years of stuff just came out. Said things I can't take back now." "Can't," Mara said, "or won't." He was quiet a moment, staring into the coffee like an answer might surface in it. "Does it matter?" "It's the only thing that matters." Across the diner, the old woman's needles clicked faster, a small, private acceleration, like something in her had reacted to his words even though her face gave nothing away. Daniel glanced at her. She didn't look up. He checked his phone out of habit, thumb swiping at a dark screen. No signal, not even the ghost of a bar. He frowned, tapped it against the counter as if that might coax reception out of the air, then set it down, defeated. "Nothing gets in or out here till the storm passes," Mara said, without being asked. "Convenient," Daniel said. "That's one word for it," she said, and something like a smile touched the corner of her mouth, brief and gone. Thunder rolled outside, long and low, rattling the window glass. The lights overhead flickered in time with the neon sign, like the whole building was breathing in the dark. "Can I ask you something weird?" Daniel said. "Weirdest thing that's happened all night so far is a man in a wet suit asking if he can ask something weird," Mara said. "Go ahead." "Does this place feel off to you?" he said. "Like I've been here before, except I haven't. It's not déjà vu exactly. It's more like a certainty, like I already know where the sugar is or which stool wobbles." Mara stopped wiping the counter. For the first time, something crossed her face. Sympathy, maybe, or recognition, or both at once, folded together into an expression too old for her apparent age. "Everybody who walks through that door says some version of that," she said. "That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got permission to give." He turned that over in his mind, the strangeness of the phrasing permission, but let it go, the way tired people let strange things go, filing it under later along with the rain, the signal, the wobbling stool he hadn't yet tested. Later, though no clock in the diner seemed to move, and Daniel could not have said how much time had actually passed, he had moved to a booth by the window, where rain streaked the glass in long, wandering lines. He'd pulled a photograph from his duffel bag, worn, creased down the middle from years in wallets and drawers, of 2 boys with their arms around each other, maybe 10 and 12 years old, squinting into some forgotten summer sun. Mara came by with the coffee pot and refilled his cup without being asked. "Your brother," she said, nodding at the photo. "Yeah," Daniel looked at it like it might come apart in his hands if he held it wrong. We used to build blanket forts in the living room and pretend we were the last two people on Earth. Had a whole mythology about it, a language, even half-made-up words for things only we cared about. Kid stuff. Kid stuff doesn't stay kid stuff, Myra said, settling the pot on the table between them. It just gets quieter. It goes underground and waits. Daniel's hand trembled slightly around the mug. I told him I wished he'd never been born, he said. That was the last thing I said to him, before. He stopped, the word wouldn't come. Before what? Myra asked, gently, the way you'd coax something skittish out from under a porch. The car went off the bridge, Daniel said, both of us in it. His voice had gone thin, and something in the room seemed to lean in to listen. I don't actually remember getting out. Across the room, the old woman's needles went still, the first time all night. She lifted her head slowly and looked directly at Daniel, her expression carrying the weight of decades, and somehow, underneath all that weight, a deep and weathered kindness. None of us remember getting out, dear, she said. Daniel startled. It was the first time she'd spoken at all, and her voice was softer than he'd expected, cracked at the edges like old paper. Excuse me. I've been sitting in this diner for 43 years, the old woman said, resuming her knitting, needles clicking again, slower now. I know because I count the stitches. Every scarf is 1 year. I have 43 scarves folded in a chest that isn't here, and I never once finished the 44th. I don't understand, Daniel said, and his voice cracked too. You will, Myra said, from where she'd risen and drifted back toward the counter, though she hadn't seemed to move her feet at all. Everyone does eventually, usually right about now. Daniel stood so fast the booth's vinyl seat sighed beneath him. He backed toward the door, panic rising in his chest like water finding its level, filling every hollow space at once. I need to go, he said, the words tumbling now. I need my phone, I need to call someone, I need to know if he's okay if I'm. He reached the door and pulled the handle. It didn't open. He pulled harder, both hands now, his shoulder braced against the frame. Nothing. The door held as fast as if it had been painted onto the wall. It only opens one way, Myra said, not unkindly. You already came through it. Then what is this place? Daniel turned on her, desperate, the duffel bag forgotten on the booth seat behind him. Myra set down the coffee pot at last. She came around the counter, the first time in the whole long night she had stepped out from behind it, and crossed the room to sit across from him in the booth, where the photograph still lay face up on the table between the coffee rings. This is the place between the question and the answer, she said. Some people pass through in a blink, they don't even remember stopping here. Some of us. She glanced toward the old woman, whose needles clicked on, patient as rain, take a while, because the answer is something we're not ready to hold. Am I dead? Daniel asked, and the word sat strange and enormous in the small room. That's not the question you actually want answered. Daniel looked at her, then down at the photograph. His fingers found the smaller boy's face and traced the outline of it, the small crooked grin, the sunburned nose. Is he okay? He asked, barely audible. Did he make it? Is my brother alive? Myra was quiet for a long moment, the kindest silence in the whole night, the kind that doesn't rush toward an answer because it respects the size of the question. I don't know, she said finally. That's the truth of it. I only know what happens in this room, not what happens after that door. Then how do I leave? You stop asking whether you can take it back, Myra said, and you start deciding what you'd say if you got the chance. Daniel sat alone in the booth for a long while after that, the rain still streaking sideways past the glass, the jukebox still humming its unplaceable tune. Myra had gone back behind the counter, wiping the same spot, patient as ever. The old woman knitted on, her 44th scarf growing by the stitch, never any closer to done. He picked up the photograph and held it with both hands and spoke quietly. To no one, to everyone, to the boy in the picture and the man he'd become. I don't wish you were never born, he said. I never wished that. Not for 1 second, not really. I was scared and small, and I said the cruelest thing I could think of because I didn't know how to say I was scared of losing you. He paused, and his voice, which had wavered all night, finally steadied. I love you. That's it. That's always been it. That's the only true thing I have. Outside, the neon sign stopped flickering. It held steady, Every letter lit at once, as if the storm itself had exhaled. Ruby S., open 24 HRS. Myra looked up from the counter. She smiled, small and real, the first unguarded thing she'd shown all night. There it is, she said. Daniel looked toward the door. Warm light now spilled from beneath it, not headlights, not streetlight, something softer than either, something that seemed to come from very far away and very close at the same time. He stood, and the duffel bag slid unnoticed to the floor. He walked to the door and paused with his hand on the handle, looking back at Mara and the old woman, at the diner that had held him without asking anything but the truth. "Will I remember this?" he asked. "No one ever has," Mara said, "but it stays with you anyway, underneath, like the kid stuff, like the forts." He nodded as if that were enough, and somehow it was. He opened the door, and light flooded in, overtaking the frame entirely. No rain, no road, no bridge, only light, warm and total and without edges. He stepped through, and the door closed behind him without a sound. Silence settled over the diner, the particular silence that comes after something has been decided. Myra returned to wiping the counter. The old woman's needles clicked back to life, steady as ever, counting nothing anyone else could measure. The bell over the door jingled. Myra looked up, already tired, already kind, her whole face arranging itself into the same patient welcome it always had, though we never see who has come in, or what they carry with them, or what they haven't yet said out loud. "We're closing soon," she said. "The end,"